Vamos a empezar entonces. So we are going to start. Thank you very much for attending the reading. Les doy la bienvenida a la segunda
Hello
lectura del
and welcome
proyecto
to
Inquietud
the
Disquiet.
Disquiet project.
Hoy y
It is the
mañana
second
será la última
reading and
lectura
we
y van
will
a
have
poder
the third
escuchar a
one
quienes
tomorrow, and you'll be
participaron
able
del
to hear
proyecto
all of
durante los
the
últimos 3 meses.
writings that the people
Hoy
in
voy
the
a intentar
workshop
hacer una
made.
presentación
I'm
un
going
poco
to
más
be
breve porque
brief
muchos
this time
muchas
because a lot
estuvieron
of
la semana
you were
pasada.
already in last meeting.
Inquietud
Inquietud
Disquiet.
Disquiet workshops
Inquietud
were 3
Disquiet
workshops
surgió
that
entre
were
España
carried out
hispanohablante y
online. It was
creativa en
creative
español,
writing
dirigidos
and it was
principalmente
mainly
a la
aimed
comunidad
at the
hispanohablante de Nueva York.
Latin American Hispanic
A su vez, las
community
lecturas y propuestas de
in the
escritura también
US.
se
And the
compartían a través de
readings were
las
also
redes
shared
sociales
on
de
all
forma
social
bilingüe para
networks in a
facilitar
bilingual
a todos
format,
quienes
so anybody
quisieran
who wanted to
escribir en
write or
inglés o
become
en
a part of
español.
it could share
Cada
in.
semana fuimos
Each
publicando
week we
contenidos en las redes
published
sociales y
all
en
of
internet.
our
Ahora estamos en la
writings in a
lectura número
blog and
9.
also on social
Les agradezco
networks, and we will
muchísimo al
now give
Culture
you the addresses
Push
so
por
you
el
can
tiempo y el
access
apoyo que
them.
le dedicaron a
Thank you
este
to Culture
proyecto.
Push for
Yo los
giving your
abrazo como
support to this
parte del
project. It was
Fellowship
part
de
of the
Sociedad Practice.
Fellowship for Utopian
Quiero agradecerle
Practice.
especialmente a
Thank you to
Clarina
Clarina
McLeod por su
McLeod for
trabajo
her
avanzado.
unending and so much
También
work that she
recibimos
did
el
for us.
apoyo de New
We
York State
also had
Council
the
on Arts,
support
de
of
Poets and
the
Writers, New York Word State Up Council on Arts, Poets and Writers, Word Up Community Bookshop, National Writers Union, the Spanish Language Organization.
Stemming from the simple idea that words make up the world, we shared our writings with letters and stories and poems. I want to particularly thank the support and the help received by Mariana Faraz and Marianela.
Marianela Fernández.
They coordinated the workshop. Juan Pablo Fernandez took care of the graphic design. Daniela Glittling did a lot of the translations, and Marife Caicedo is doing the interpretation. I would also like to thank the poets that allowed us to use their texts on the workshop, and especially to all the people who participated and who wrote all these months. May I please ask Clarina McLeod to tell us about the work that Culture Push carries along, and then Guadalupe Faraj will commence to introduce everybody who will read today.
Hola. So I'll speak in English, and then Maria, will you translate, please? And I'll try to keep it slow. So Culture Push is an organization that supports artists who are working at the intersection of artistic practice, social justice, and civic engagement. We support projects through the fellowship that engage with public research into some question, usually. And for example, with Claudia, it started out as one thing and became another. And we're very interested in that process. Sorry, that was too long. And I think I'll leave it there, and I'll put a link in the chat.
In the blog of Inquietud Disquiet, you can actually see what the origin of the project was and how far we got. Guadalupe will now introduce each one of the readers.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Angela Puma is from Ecuador and she lives in Brooklyn, New York. She works as a professional nanny. She is an active member of National Domestic Workers Alliance, and she works to defend domestic workers' rights. She loves to read stories and write poems.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Ángela y bueno, voy a leer lo que he escrito. Algo que me quema todavía.
I met a love that burns me. It burns me everywhere, even to my bones. My body burns when I mention it. My hands shake when I touch it. Love of dreams, love of few, blood of many, mad joy. A love that fills me with yearning and craving. A love that's pleasurable, beautiful, precious. A love that burns my skin and my eyes. This love burns me, yes, but with ardent fire. It fills me with kisses. It calms my rages. This love that even shines in the firmament, a sweet love, honey lips, kisses of fire. A love like no other, the dreamy kind, and even dreaming it burns you from the inside. Oh, love of my life, oh, love of my yearning, oh, love that is engraved on my chest.
Ay, amor de mis anhelos. Ay, amor, te llevo grabado en mi pecho. Encuentro inesperado. Te conocí cuando mi vida
Unexpected rendezvous. I met you when my life was going down the wrong tracks. I arrived
que se
with my
desplomaban
luggage
al
full
bajar
of
del metro
hope
y al salir a la
and
calle
illusions
y ver
that
todo que
shattered
estaba
the minute I got
oscuro.
off the metro
Eran
and
las
went
4
out in the
p.m.
street to see
y
that
ver a la
everything was
gente
so dark.
caminar de un
It was
lado a
4
otro,
p.m.
hablando un
and I
idioma muy
watched
raro.
people walk
Pensé
by
que eran
speaking a
seres de
very
otro
odd
mundo,
language. I
unas
thought they were
lágrimas
beings
rodaron
from
por
another
mis
world.
mejillas,
Some
sin
tears
saber
came
qué
down my
hacer
cheeks,
ni a
and I
dónde
didn't
ir.
know what to do or where to go.
Apareciste tú,
You
en
appeared
compañía de una hermosa
along with
niña.
a
Al ver
beautiful
mi
girl.
tristeza,
Seeing
me
my
preguntaste
sadness, you
qué me
asked me what
pasaba.
was wrong.
Con mucho
And
miedo te
although I was
conté
scared,
mis
I told you my
penas.
sorrows, and
Fuiste
you
un
were an angel
ángel
that
que
God
Dios
sent
me
for me.
envió.
You
Me
extended
sentiste
your
tu mano,
hand. You
me
let me
diste
stay in your
el
house.
coraje,
You
me
helped me
empujjaste,
find a
me
job.
ayudaste a
The days
acomodar mi
passed,
mundo
and I came
trabajo.
back to visit you
Los
one
días
day, as I
pasaron
always did,
y
and I
regresé
couldn't
a
find you.
visitarte un
My
día,
heart
como siempre lo hacía,
cried
pero
of
no te
sadness
encontré.
when I didn't
Mi
see you.
corazón
Many
lloró de
years went by, and
tristeza
I
al no
always
verte.
remembered you.
Pasaron muchos
Due
años
to
y
the
siempre te
circumstances
necesitaba.
of life, we finally
Un
met
trozo de la
again at
vida
Macy's.
no
I
se
was
vuelve
looking at a
a
dress, and you
reencontrar.
were looking for the same dress. Very
Hablando de la
funny.
dress,
We were
you
both
see
in
the
love
last
with the
look
same
of the
dress.
same dress.
Our
Muy chistoso.
eyes met, and we
Pero a las
both
2,
shouted out,
enamoradas de nuestro
Angela,
vestido.
Betty, our heart
Mientras mis miradas se
jumping of
encontraron,
joy
mis
and
mejillas
and our
tembló de
face of
alegría.
happiness.
Ángela,
How small the
Betty,
world is.
a un heart jumping de alegría y nuestra cara de felicidad. Qué pequeño es el mundo.
Muchas gracias, Ángela.
Thank you, Angela.
Gracias,
Thank you,
Ángela.
everybody, for your support.
Por su apoyo.
Bueno, voy a presentar a Carmen de los Santos.
Carmen de los Santos was born in Puebla, Mexico. She moved to New York in 2004. She loves to go to the park, photography, to play soccer, and she always looks for something new to learn.
Buenas noches a todos y empiezo. Y de pronto,
And suddenly,
otra vez
once
quieres
again,
hacerte
it's there
chiquita,
without you realizing.
empieza a
Your
pesarte
body
el cuerpo,
weighs more, your
te
head
duele la
aches,
cabeza,
you feel
sientes
colder than
más frío de lo
usual,
normal,
you wish to cry
quieres
without any
llorar sin
apparent
algún motivo
reason.
aparente,
You start to remember
empiezas a
everything
recordar
bad
todo
that
lo
ever
malo que te ha
happened to you,
pasado,
things that you
las
couldn't
cosas que
nor
no
can
pudiste y
change.
puedes cambiar.
Everybody else
Los demás
don't
no
understand what
entienden lo
you're
que estás
feeling. They
sintiendo,
don't know
no saben
that
que
you
se te
don't even
van
feel like
a las ganas
eating
de
or
comer o
getting
hacer
ready to go
desesperación.
out. I understand what
Ves
you're
el modo que
feeling. I
estás
know about
viviendo,
the nights of
sé de las
insomnia
noches
that
de
you
insomnio
spend,
que pasas
sleepless
sin poder
nights,
dormir,
where you just
en
watch
las
the
que te
ceiling and
pones
you
a
can't
probar el
find
techo y no
peace.
encuentras
What
paz.
could make you feel better?
¿Qué podría
Perhaps
hacerte
if you went to
sentir
the
mejor?
restaurant you like, you could
Tal vez si
order
vas al
a shrimp
restaurante que te
cocktail
gusta,
or some
podrías
ceviche
pedir un
toast
cóctel de
and
camarón o
some
unas tostadas
pineapple
de
water.
ceviche y
Perhaps
un agua de
going for a
piña.
walk in the park
Quizás
would
ir a
make you feel
caminar un
better
rato al
if you see the
parque
change
te
of the
animaría a
color of
ver
the
el cambio de
leaves.
color en las
I
hojas.
think a bit of alcohol will
Pienso
help.
que un
You
poco de
stop
alcohol
thinking so
ayudará,
much and you sleep
dejarás de
better.
pensar tanto y dormirás mejor. Mírate,
Look at yourself
cada
each
día que
day in
insomnio,
front of me.
te ves
You look
cansada
tired, with
o no
dark
quieras,
circles. You've not
no has
slept
podido
well.
dormir
I've
bien,
seen you weep,
te he visto
lovelessness,
llorar,
a broken heart,
desamor,
bad decisions.
un corazón
Some who
roto,
left, your mother's
malas
death,
decisiones,
bitter tears.
algunos que se
There are good
marcharon,
days. You comb your
la muerte
hair
de tu madre,
happily, you get ready for
lágrimas
work,
amargas.
you sing without
Hay
shame, you
días
dance,
buenos,
slow movements,
animada
and
te
you smile.
peinas, te alistas para el trabajo, cantas sin vergüenza, bailas, movimientos lentos y sonríes. Gracias. Thank you.
Gracias, Carmen. Bueno, el próximo lector va a ser Guillermo Pessoa.
Guillermo Pessoa is a musician, a composer, and a teacher. He composes music for theater, film, and TV. He was part of the band Pequeña Orquesta Reincidentes. He recorded 8 records. In 2010, he published Lunes, his first soloist CD, and he is now producing material with his new group El Viento. He imparts classes in school in the program of documentary cinema in UNSAM, in the master program of interactive design for Fado UBA, and since 2005 he coordinates a composition workshop.
Hola a todos. El hombre invisible. Esa noche de marzo.
That night in March 2001, many people hurrying up and down Santa Fe Avenue, among the cars, horns, buses, a guy, not much older than me, sitting on a doorway, begging with his hands and his eyes. A little help, please. A little help, please. We greeted each other and I sat beside him. He told me his name was Caesar. He'd lost his job, then he was evicted and ashamed. He managed to get a room for a few pesos for his son and his wife. That night, he slept on the street for the first time. And then came another and another and another. And then he said, "You're already dirty. It's noticeable. The hair, the clothes, nobody greets you, nobody gives you work. After a few days, nobody looks at you anymore. Nobody sees you." And so it was. Since I was with him, sitting almost level to the pavement, no one looked at me, no one saw me. I had disappeared in a dense and dull smoke, a nightmare that blurred the childish dream of being invisible. Now, every time I go out for a walk, every time I am around there are glances exchanged. Someone always sees me, and then I know I exist. I look for Caesar's eyes in every doorstep.
Ahora, cada vez que salgo a caminar, cada vez que ando por ahí, alguna mirada se cruza, siempre alguien me ve, y entonces sé que existo. Busco los ojos de César en cada umbral.
The heaven that awaits. I wash that body from where I come and where I am going, which both resembles me so and yet so little. I wash your body without wetting the dressings, the bandages, carefully. I dry your legs, your arms, but you don't want me to help you wash your face. You look in the mirror as a before and after. I'm beside you, and I see your gray eyes cannot fathom your yellowed skin, your white hair. In the story of the days and hours that pass by, silence builds up like the moles on your back. We trace like stars the night that's closer and the heaven that awaits you.
El silencio se amontona, como los lunares de tu espalda, que dibujan como estrellas la noche que se acerca, el cielo que te espera.
Gracias, Guillermo, y qué bueno verte después de tanto tiempo. Ahora va a leer Felicitas Cordes, que Marifé tenés los textos antes que los de Guillermo.
Felicitas Cordes, who was born in Buenos Aires 4 decades ago and perhaps even more. She writes poems since she was a little girl, and she perceives herself as an unknown writer and poet.
Buenas noches. Cascarudo.
Torito Beetle. That afternoon, I understood the dichotomy you hit hard. My memory of precocious childhood, everything I was due to discover would happen painfully. Yours, nonetheless, became a hilarious anecdote. At 8, I wanted to know if your horn was as unerring as it rose, if your speed could defeat my childhood. In an instant, unexpected, Torito crashed against my stupidity. Its horn went through my finger, teaching my accusing gesture.
En un instante inesperado, el torito embustió contra mi estupidez. Su cuerno atravesó mi dedo, aleccionando mi gesto acusatorio. Enamorada del muro.
Enamorada del muro. I have to explain that this is a climbing plant in Argentina, and it's called in love with the wall. So that's important. I do piecework for love. It is not quantified. The honesty of the daily embrace, the way these children grow under my shadow's protection and over the warmth of my maternal lap. My work is the value of temperance, a mental row of socks to pair up. It's a game, whilst I teach Spanish to those same children that I feed gluten-free. My job is to learn, to deliver the safety I still seek. In love with the wall, my life climbs, tangled up, the always new heights of the children who will grow with the imprint and guide of my roots, which settle there day after day.
De los niños que crecerán con la estampa y guía de mis raíces que a diario amuran allí. Gracias.
Gracias, Felicitas.
Gracias a ustedes.
La próxima lectora es Irene Prieto. Irene Prieto nació en la ciudad de
Irene Prieto was born in Mexico City in 1945. She studied French literature at UNAM and Hispano-American literature at Hunter College and NYU. She worked as a translator or an interpreter in the UN, New York. She started with poetry with sonnets published in the Mestre publication from the literary workshop of Juan José Arreola. Later on, some of her poems and literary essays appeared in magazines in Mexico and New York. Her texts also were published in the anthologies Hecho en Nueva York and Feria Internacional del Libro de Nueva York. She published the books Los Poemas de Irene and Mujer de Otro País.
Buenas noches, gracias. Bienvenidos a todos. Inquietud.
Disquiet. The yellow leaves that the wind shakes and finally tears from the branch. Shadows far and close that the movement of the light drags. The reflection on mirrors of quicksilver or water. The eyelids fluttering like leaves shaken by the wind. Celestial objects in their orbits marking time. The hours passing by are steps. The echo of words pronounced and unsaid. Written, unforeseen words. The echo of the blood that continues on its way forth and back, a river of warm water, the blood sweetly agitated in the double heart of the one expecting to be a mother, who already is so even before bearing the light and the darkness of the world. Echo of the voice in the womb, words about to be born to the disquiet of life.
Que ya lo es aún antes de dar a luz, al resplandor y la oscuridad del mundo. Eco de la voz en el útero, palabras a punto de nacer, a la inquietud de la vida. En conexión con el tema
This is on the theme of fire,
los anillos del árbol.
the rings of the tree. How many girls were there in me? Along how many years? I try to remember the gaze of at least one of them, watching what she's being said. Some characteristic gesture of happiness, impatience, or disappointment. It is impossible to imagine her being surprised of seeing every now and again other girls, but none of them is her. How does she speak to them? With what words, if she's just starting to learn them? Voices that I cannot or don't want to hear. Mine doesn't matter for the time being. When I open my mouth, it will be to deny it wasn't me, or not even that. To be able to close it again, together with my eyes, to feel the cold that comes up through my feet, to fall into a white, cottony dream from which I wish I didn't have to wake up. When I do, I am already someone else. Memory lapses. I mean, how many girls, but I mean lives, marks in the body, like the rings on a tree from cambium. How does the girl's bewilderment manifest in her development? Bit by bit, to see yourself in someone else's eyes, to recognize yourself by halves, but in any case, to know something, to know that you're somebody capable of seeing, of recognizing, of responding. Each ring marks a birth. To get to the bark, giving steps, stumbling. Little by little, scars appear in the body and in feelings. The heartwood. The scars from the blaze. The periderm protects the interior, but I no longer keep secrets. At the end, the sapwood. In 3/4 of a century, how many girls, how many lives, how many blazes?
El duramen, cicatrices de incendio. El peridermo protege el interior, pero ya no guardo secretos. Al final, la albura. En 3/4 de siglo, cuántas niñas, cuántas vidas, cuántos fuegos. Gracias y felicidades a la traductora.
Gracias,
Muchas gracias.
Irene. Bueno, Marianela.
Hola, buenas noches. Yo soy Marianela Fernández.
Hi, my name is Marianela. I coordinated Wednesday workshops, and when I was thinking about the workshops and the work that was being done, I thought I would speak about one word.
Lo que estaba pasando en el taller, pasa en los talleres en general, con esta propuesta. Se me ocurrió pensar en una palabra. Entre tantas palabras que se dijeron, una palabra.
It's a bit difficult to find just one word, but after thinking about it, I thought the right word was generosity. Beginning with Claudia's generosity that asks us to gather around words, also in such a loving way. Also the generosity of the people who participated, who are willing to share their voices and who also are willing to read and to share the generosity of other writers. I also wish to recognize the diversity that was present in these workshops. The diversity in the poets that were put forth to read and also in the voices of the participants. Now I'm going to propose an exercise, a collective creation. I'm going to ask all of you to write on the chat 1 or 2 sentences about the following, something that you see growing. That is the call for tonight, something you see growing.
Esa es la consigna, algo que ves crecer.
Once you put all your sentences in, Guadalupe will get them all together, we'll pull them together, and then we will read them at the end of the evening. You can begin to write on the chat whenever you have your sentences ready. Okay, since nobody's been writing on the chat for a little bit, we're going to just go back to reading. We're going to join the ideas and read it at the end of the evening. Okay.
Vamos a leerlas al final del encuentro.
Bueno, el próximo lector va a ser
Next reader is Julián Martínez Vázquez.
Julián
Martínez Vázquez was born in Buenos Aires, but he grew up in the seaside town of Necochea on the south of the province. He studied literature and he works for the past 20 years as a teacher of both grammar and Spanish for foreigners. He writes since he was a boy, but he began to do it with more effort and dedication in 2005 as a participant of Claudia Prado's workshop, and then he followed that with other seminars and workshops with writers Osvaldo Bossi, Federico Falco, and Julián López.
Gracias. Gracias, Claudia. Gracias, Guada. Gracias, María. Bien. Me inquieta.
I am unsettled by the grief to come. I mean suffering, in love, in the body, in the family. I am unsettled by the fact that I did not learn languages. I can't pronounce French well. I don't understand the Earth's rotation, incompetence. I am unsettled by social networks, violent of boredom. We're blocking and remaining more and more within oneself. I am unsettled by not completely coming out of the warm egg of idiocy. Was I born at any time? Clouds are unsettled. They swirl. They become a conduit. Rivers are unsettled. They drag dead animal bodies. Branches lost to the storm. Voices are unsettled at the supermarket. Why just one cashier? You overcharged me. Water is unsettled over the stove's fires at tea time each afternoon. Cells are unsettled, flesh that bring on old age, a monster that awaits quietly, who does not even jump, that end.
Se inquieta el agua sobre los fuegos de la cocina a la hora del té de cada tarde. Se inquietan las células, las carnes que llevan a la vejez. Monstruo que espera quieto, que ni siquiera salta. ¿Qué fin? Aquel fuego
That fire
en el jardín de
in the
casa,
garden of the house, timber
las maderas
burned
ardían como
like
la
the
tarde,
afternoon. My dad in a
bajo mi
Panama hat
sombrero Panamá,
with his
la
half-open
camisa
shirt,
entreabierta,
the jokes. My brother with a bandana on his forehead.
mi hermano
Summer,
con un pañuelo
Dad
en la
laughed.
frente,
Meat,
el
that
verano,
fire, 4
a par de
plates
días,
ablaze, like a
la casa.
tenderness. Still, it was night, going out to
Aquel
winter,
fuego,
to sea buses, to
las 4
teachers.
hornallas
Mom would
encendidas
flood our brotherly
como un
cups.
cariño,
Hurry, always hurry.
la noche
Now
todavía,
that death, I wish to
salida de
return.
invierno,
The
los
magic that is
colectivos
thought
de la mar,
out to the father's
a las
afternoon,
maestras.
to the mother's morning,
Mamá
and put
inundaba
them out.
nuestras tazas
One
de
must be
hermanos.
courageous to extinguish
Apúrense,
such beloved fires.
siempre el apuro.
Now there's growing, facing the cold,
Ahora
going
que
slowly
no esté,
towards new warmths.
quiero volver, la magia que se piensa, a la tarde del padre, a la mañana de la madre. Y apagar. Hay que tener valor. Y extinguir los fuegos tan queridos. Ahora queda crecer, queda enfrentar el frío, ir lento hacia calores nuevos.
Gracias,
Gracias.
Julián. Bueno, Liz.
Lis Santamaría
Lis Santamaría was born in Caracas, Venezuela in November 1986, and that's where she lived the first 28 years of her life. She studied psychology. She is a family therapist and an interpreter for English, Spanish in the immigration courts. She's lived in Sweden, Spain, England, and now the US. What's most important is to learn to say salud, cheers, skal in those languages when you enjoy beers with friends.
Acerca de mi trabajo.
About work, the fortnight. The fortnight is paid for by the voices, the suit, the formality, the silence in the waiting room. The window returns to me the impassive gaze of the court. I barricade myself on the edge of the audience, fine-tuning my radar. A witness speaks, then another. If I am lucky, I decipher the mathematic coda and return it in Spanish. Every now and again, agitated whispers interrupt the quiet. In the ears of the judge, the destinies of the law are insufficient. I recognize broken bones under the mallet of exile, keloids, and fissures activated by the cold, strangulated chanting by women. A harpoon infects their lungs. They only perceive themselves as objects before the pale and artificial light of the dock. Voices turn back to their opaque nooks. Interpreting requires me to become a sweaty witness of the shadow of words. I insist, the voices pay my fortnight. In this house, I identify cracked rooms, rusty mirrors, drains full of mold. Would Archimedes be irritated if he knew therapists plagiarize his formula to calibrate words? I rate the sofa's cushions, looking for awareness of space, time, and illness. I smear ashes on my lips. Narrative remains of the past. We distract ourselves walking, traces of gunpowder, chalk masks, obscure what occurred. Silence is embedded in future identities. Gravity induces the repetition of destiny. Voices nest in burrows of time, slowly gnawing crumbs of memory. They reappear at their own discretion. We suspiciously speak the same language.
Royendo a poco migajas de memoria. Reaparecen a discreción propia. Sospechosamente hablamos el mismo idioma.
Gracias. Bueno, la próxima lectora es Montserrat.
Montserrat Vargas,
Montserrat Vargas is Chilean, a craftivist and an actress. She has worked as a Spanish and art teacher in a school for gifted children and special needs children in Manhattan, New York. In her artistic personal work, Montserrat explores the contemporary feminine immigrant perspective. focusing on the awareness of mental health in the Latino community. You can find some of her works at her online store. She will send the links via the chat.
Hola, muchas gracias por hacer esto posible. Thank you so much for making this happen. Oh. Sin título, sobre el nacer. He brotado muchas veces.
I have sprouted many times, germinated less. But it is a bit confusing confirming that I was not born until I left the land that gave birth to me. The transplant gave me wings, even though my species is not supposed to travel through the clouds or to even think about them. The origin of what I was is transformed in the memory of the end of my beginning. You cannot grow without taking on the past. It becomes a fertilizer that gives you energy to not go backwards. I don't care about the speed of my development because I am enjoying for the first time the choosing of each of my shoots. I don't know where the fallen dry leaves were left, but I do remember each one of them. To have this new body and to keep it in its maximum splendor has been the real trip. I'm willing to die and be reborn as many times as it is necessary.
Gracias, Montserrat. Myra Lee.
Myra Lee
Myra Lee Machado is a mother and Latin American immigrant. She loves Spanish and salsa.
Ok, 20 de octubre de 2020. Tuve mi primera experiencia.
I had my first experience with mental suffering when I was 11. It was a conversation in my grandmother's living room about the noise that there was outside and that bothered my uncle. He was always loving. Sometimes he was in a bad mood, but never with me. He loved to listen to Jose Feliciano and Stevie Wonder with his dark glasses and his rocking back and forth that my uncle imitated. He loved to dance fearlessly, without much coordination, but with that expression on his face that showed you he really enjoyed each melody he danced, always alone, but in everybody's presence. Bit by bit, my uncle began to have daily failures. He would shut himself off in his room. He would spend days without bathing. His hair started growing and he finally left work. He was diagnosed as schizophrenic. From then on, there was an abyss between his days of crisis and his moments of reason. It was the evident beginning of his psychosis. He would jump on the bed, he would say incomplete phrases, and he'd refer to trips he had never taken. Nobody could understand him. He would look at me in the eyes, and it would seem that he was looking at somebody who wasn't me, different to me. There was no lack of invention and family justifications. He was always very lonesome, or marijuana in his teen years made the disease come to him. There was a sort of collective fear that some of us may also lose our minds. 30 years have gone by since that diagnosis. My uncle is 60 and he's just got married. He still dances, but now he's got somebody to dance with. I work with people who are diagnosed with diverse types of schizophrenia, and they also dance in front of me to the rhythm of Stevie Wonder with the same transparent gaze that assures me that they belong to two worlds.
Gracias, Myra Lee.
Neshi
Galindo was born in Oaxaca, in Mexico, in 1985. She loves photography and reading is one of her favorite passions. The scent of loneliness. The fleeting realm of aromas is what makes us touch the world like blind people. So said my grandmother to me once. And it is true, we are surrounded by smells. Seasons, dawn, people, markets. There are scents everywhere. Some are known, others unsettle you. But the scent that I was not able to find anywhere was my grandmother's. I would so much love to be able to describe her scent, to be a composer and to make a song about her essence, to find her harmonic affinity of water, flowers, smoke, and sunset. It would be like a song that, when you hear it, would leave a first impression. It would remain in the senses like a trail that lasts many days, and then I would listen to it again to discover its notes, its scent. A few days ago, I dreamt about her. She was combing my hair like when I was a little girl. I fell back on her arms. Her skin was soft, like wrinkled satin. Her temperature was cold. She caressed me and asked me to fall asleep. Before I closed my eyes, I took in her scent, and from my own darkness, I tried to decipher her essence. I then discovered that my grandmother smelled of loneliness, a splendid loneliness. The new era of cameras and computers. I feel like I'm in the story of a storyteller from the future. I sit in front of the monitor. I see his smile. I hear it without touching it. On this side, I set up a theater. Stuffed animals speak. They say jokes and phrases with rhymes. She comes in and orders a change in the script. There are no excuses not to do it. It's been said that in this story, everything is possible.
Gracias, Neshi. Y ahora Silvia Domingo.
Silvia Domingo vivió en
Silvia
Buenos
Domingo
Aires hasta los 13
lived in
años.
Buenos Aires until she was 13. Then she lived in Mar del Plata, and for the past 18 years, she has lived in Bariloche, Argentina. A part of her feels very identified with the sea and another with the lake and the mountains. She's married and she has 4 sons. She's very much inclined towards studying, especially artistic disciplines. She studied law and she was a lawyer for quite a few years. 17 years ago, she began working in the hotel industry. At her job, she's in contact with other cultures and she organizes artistic and cultural events. She loves photography and writing.
Buenas noches. Gracias. El fuego. Hay un fuego de otra
There
época.
is a fire from another time that still blazes, from the center of the universe. That spark reaches us when we cry, when we laugh, when we fall, when we are alone, and we go back to being ourselves. When I see you again, and I look at you, or a memory of you flies like a bird to my soul, love of my adolescence. There is a fire from another time that still blazes, that unites us. My parents' love, which ignited me, the one that brought them and before them. If the sun that shines intact in all, it's the sun that shines intact in all my childhood photos. Fire is immemorial. It illuminates whenever I think it's extinguished. It bursts in with each new life. Or is it perhaps not in that plant that sprouts in a crack, in sunrises or in sunsets, in every star, in every stroke of a painter? Fire is pure light irradiating from our hearts. It envelops us, it covers us, so we can shine and honor our essence, going back to being those who the fire brought here.
Ahora voy a leer otro poema.
I'm going to read a poem about something that others can't see, about my friend Fernanda. If she could see her full beauty, the joy she irradiates, what her example inspires, her integrity, her honesty to the core, her devotion, the generosity of her soul, her infinite love for her mom, for her daughter, and the admiration she engenders, if she could see all of her talents and return to her love of dance and tango, of photography, of plants, of beauty in everything, and go back to the love of herself. I think it would be beautiful if she could see herself. My friend Fer is so fragile and delicate that I would just like to hug her carefully. She's made of crystal, so fine, so simple and ethereal, like a buttercup.
Gracias.
I asked Sylvia to tell us a bit about her experience in this project. I wanted her to talk about the fact that she participated in the project without actually attending the workshops, and yet she was one of the most enthusiastic participants, and she would send us each of her writings after the 8 proposals were sent in.
Con cada una de las 8 propuestas de escritura. Silvia.
Bueno, primero, gracias, muchas gracias.
Thank you, Claudia, and all the organizers that made this project possible. I wrote some things down so I wouldn't forget any of the things that I wanted to share. It was wonderful to participate in this project and to lose the fear of sharing what we had written. It was also very nice, and it was my first time in this type of project, where not only did we read what we wrote, but we also read what others wrote and we shared it, and that made it a very rich experience. I also want to say thanks because I was very happy with the ideas of the proposals that you put forth. They made me very enthusiastic and motivated to write.
De las distintas propuestas, los temas que proponían, eso generó un entusiasmo y bueno, me motivó a escribir.
I also want to underline the vital social function of this type of project that allows us to share beauty with everybody who participates and with all really, and it makes us inclusive, it makes us be together in spite and because of our differences, and also to share our passion. I am so thankful. It's been a real gift to me.
Y bueno, justamente a despertar que sigamos compartiendo lo que hacemos. Lo hacemos con pasión. Les agradezco a todos porque fue hermoso participar. Hermoso. Un regalo. Algo más, simplemente hoy hablaron de la
I also want to say that generosity is very notable in this project because all of this beauty, if it wasn't shared, would make the world a bit less beautiful today.
Creo que el mundo hoy tendría un poquito menos de belleza. Así que gracias.
Bueno, Silvia, muchísimas gracias por tu escritura.
Marianela will now read the collective poem that we have all written.
Ahora el poema o el texto que surgió de lo que cada cual escribimos.
Los veranos e inviernos se acentúan como los brazos.
Summers and winters become accentuated like the extended arms of climate change. Love grows, compassion grows. I see the growth of the beauty of the heart of many people. I see the love for myself growing. We gradually saw disquiet grow. After 9-10 months, we're beginning to see hope grow. I see growing within me wrinkles from my smiles and my tears. I see my hunger for keeping my fingers on a pencil and paper growing. My faith grows like a strong tree that holds me with love and strength in this darkness that sometimes frightens me. I see my compassion towards myself grow until I can see myself with tenderness. A whitish bluish terrarium is full of greens and yellows with the new shoots. I see my son grows. He was so small and just the pegelo kept his bones up. He now has dreams of himself and he accumulates his own opinions and thoughts. I see how my shadow grows against the wall each minute, each second, whilst I wait for you. Proliferating in the tree of the Big Apple, in the midst of the city that frightens us, I cry and I cry without dew, with the dryness that reaches me. The somber city grows towards the water, always towards the water. The languages, the voices, the books, the poems, as Jaskin says, a new world. I have felt my capability for patience grow. Shadow to shadow, each day the shadows grow more towards the winter solstice. Then the light will begin. I see the dreams I had as a young person grow. I had good and bad moments, sadness and happiness. And in time, those dreams took the shape of how beautiful life is, to see that every effort in time gives fruit. The hope for a new beginning once we have the vaccine for the coronavirus. What I know about myself grows and then I change. What I know of others grows and then I forget it. I see the diversity of my children grow in love, in thought, creativity, taste, and companionship.
La diversidad de mis niños en pensamientos, creatividad, gustos y compañerismo. Los nuevos poemas que existían en mí. Palabras que crecen en mí como sale el vapor de la tierra tras la lluvia.
Bueno, muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you all for reading, writing, and sharing these sentences with everybody.
Con los demás. Suena religioso, pero no era mi intención. Y bueno, antes de despedirnos, si alguien
If the people who came to listen would want to ask something or make any comment, please feel free to do so.
Alguno de los lectores puede hacerlo o hacer algún comentario.
Aló. Aló, Myra. Sí, soy yo, Edgar.
Hi, my name is Edgar Jaramillo. I am new. This is my first day I discovered this. I love the idea, but since I'm new, I would like to know how the process goes. Do I write a poem? Where do I send it, etc.?
Solamente pues tengo inquietudes como soy nuevo, entonces sería cuál es el proceso, uno escribe el poema, lo manda a algún website o algo y en fin, eso es lo que quiero saber.
Hola, Edgar.
Hi, Edgar. Readings are part of the end of the project, the end of the process. Everyone they read last week what they wrote during this whole process. They will read today and tomorrow.
En estas tres lecturas, el lunes pasado, hoy y mañana. De todas formas,
the readings and the proposals are still in our blog and on Facebook, so you can find them there. And if they inspire you, you may write, and you can. So you can find in the blog for the project the ways to share what you write.
Y al encontrarlas vas a ver también cómo es la forma de compartirlas. Si querés podemos volver a poner la dirección del proyecto acá en el chat.
This particular project has ended, but we hope to be able to repeat it at some later date. If there are no further queries, we will see you tomorrow for the last reading. Goodbye, and thanks for sharing.